the Fantasy Source Baseball podcast. My name is David A. Arnott, sitting here with George Winkler, and today our theme is breakout players. So I'm going to let you start out, George, by telling us what you mean by breakout.
Well, what I mean by breakout might be different from what somebody else means, but I'm looking at guys that are young and a little bit unknown. It used to be the age 27 was the known age you looked for breakout players, but that seems to be almost too old. That seems like you're getting to the fringe of breakout, and if you haven't done it by then, maybe there's something wrong with you. So I'm looking at guys more in the age 23 to age 27 area.
Yeah, I mean, with pitchers especially, some of the research that's been done recently talks about how pitchers, they are just as good as they're going to be around age 22, 23, and that it's really a matter of time until they break down after that. Our perception of the players getting older and getting better might not exactly match up to exactly what happens. I mean, there's all sorts of things about like success bias and all those sorts of things. Like the guys who do succeed are the ones that we remember, and so on and so forth. Let's talk about the hitters first. Who are some of the guys that you see that maybe aren't as held? I guess this is almost like a sleeper discussion. But who are some of the guys that you see being prime candidates to break out this year among the hitters?
Well, some of the guys who fit that age category I was talking about are Carlos Santana, Gordon Beckham, Pedro Alvarez, Starlin Castro, and Andrew McCutchen.
Now, I mean, to start off, all those should be names that regular fantasy managers know and have on their radar. But you're saying these guys, they have the potential to take that next step, be serious like fantasy stalwarts.
Yeah, like with a guy like McCutchen, you could argue he's already broken out, but now he can go from the middle up to maybe an elite outfielder. With Santana, he's a guy we thought was going to be the AL version of Buster Posey last year. He comes up, he tears up his knee. So with him, I'm watching him in spring training to see, can he catch back-to-back days? Is he catching a lot of innings in games? Is the knee okay? Because if it is, I think this guy's an incredible hitter that could break out this year.
Santana he's one of the very best offensive debuts that any catcher's had. I mean, you go back over time, it's basically Joe Mauer, Brian McCann. Those are the types of names you see as comparables for him. He did better than when Victor Martinez came up. I mean, and pretty much about as well as Posey did.
Yeah, and it was so deflating when he got hurt last year. So unfortunate, and the play at the plate. And we just hope that there's a sign this spring that he's okay. Some of the other guys on this list, I mean, Starlin Castro, he was only 19 when he hit 300 last year, stole 10 bases, got caught 8 times. If he can improve on that, he's a guy who could break out. And those are the really rare guys, like the Ken Griffey Jr. types that can do that at 19, 20. And that's why this breakout thing is such a kind of a nebulous thing that kind of slides along those ages.
Right. I mean, well, Beckham is a guy who we thought had already broken out, and then just completely bombed. And now he's in that weird no man's land where we're trying to wonder if he actually filed a Ben grievance or if he's if he just happened to have a bad year and he's going to get back to it.
Well, Beckham is interesting because he goes against all the things I look for.
Right.
He had a good finish. He has a good age, and he was really disappointing last year. So he's one of those breakouts on the rebound type guys because everybody's the shines off on him. And then there's Pedro Alvarez. I just have to mention him because he has an addiction to Latin cuisine, and I love that. I love that about Pedro Alvarez.
Well, you said the things that you look for. What are the things that specifically that you look for in a hitter that you think is about to break out?
Well, we talked about that recent performance. Was he good after the All-Star break last year? Was he good down the stretch? Did he handle a prime-time role like a Major League starter should? These are all signs that maybe he's finally getting it, He's been through the minors, and now he's making the adjustments, and then he's ready to take off.
Okay, so who are some of the pitchers that you're looking at now, and what are the things that you're seeing in those pitchers that make you think they're going to break out?
Well, Gio Gonzalez of the A's, he had really good numbers after the break last year. He's 8-3 with a 2.59 ERA. But and he strikes out a lot of people, but the thing that's really good about him is he decreased his walk rate. Mm-hmm. I call him Jonathan Sanchez of the American League because he could blow up one start, but if he can keep that control, he's going to be somebody at age 25 in that good ballpark in Oakland who could be a breakout guy. Others like Ulis Chachin, Brian Mattis, Chachin of the Rockies. You know, he came in August, and they made him a full-time starter, and he struck out 49 guys in 55 innings.
Or the other way around, 55 strikeouts in 49 innings, even better.
Thank you for correcting me on that. But he was another high K-rate guy who just needs to get it under control, harness the stuff, and then he's ready to take off. And with Mattis, 7-3 with a 3.63 ERA and 1.19 WHIP after the All-Star break last year. You know, the only thing you worry about him is he's in that AL East and he plays for the Orioles, so you know maybe the wins aren't there. But I like him.
One of the guys even farther down your list that I see you have here that I really love is Craig Kimbrell. I mean, he's one that, again, the average fantasy manager probably already has him targeted because he's probably going to be the Braves closer. Probably. I don't think it's been settled quite yet, if I recall correctly. But he had an amazing strikeout rate last year. He was pretty much untouchable. And if he's getting those saves, there is a scenario where he is the best closer in all of fantasy baseball. I mean, it's not out of the question, and thus he's pretty valuable in my estimation, at least.
I think if I were a guy who got tattoos, I would tattoo Craig Kimbrell on my arm this spring because this guy, the Braves are
That's devotion.
The Braves are right there. They're in the NL East, second place type team. And Billy Wagner, he hasn't filed his retirement papers yet, but so if he doesn't pull a Brett Favre, though, Kimbrell should be the closer. And you mentioned that strikeout rate; it was just phenomenal last year.
Any starting pitchers? Any other starting pitchers that you're looking at that you just think to yourself, man? I mean, they're just not getting the pub that they probably should, according to the factors that you're seeing, that they're going to do better than they did last year.
Well, Sean Markham is a guy. He might be a little bit old to consider one of my breakouts.
Yeah, and in real life, we think of him as being a pretty good pitcher already. In fantasy, though, it hasn't just quite come together for him yet.
Yeah, I think it could, though. With a switch to the National League, he doesn't have to face the DHs. He'll be in Milwaukee, theoretically a weaker division with a bad bottom half of that division. So Markham's a guy to look for. And on the other end of the spectrum, a really young guy, Jeremy Hellickson, gets a chance with Tampa Bay with Matt Garza going to Chicago.
Yeah, don't be scared away of him being listed as the fifth starter or something like that, because guy was really good in his limited innings last year.
Yeah, he was lights out in the minors and looks like one of those high strikeout guys.
All right, George, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.